Broadcast, where we interview interesting people doing interesting things, where you can expand your connections, your community. Kindness is cool and smiles are free. And let's get this party started. And it's a good day for a pirate broadcast, and we have, obviously interesting people doing interesting things. And so I want to introduce you to, and if you're not connected to, you need to be connected to Josh. Josh is a rebel, a pirate, and he's kind of going down to this path of helping podcasters and possibly broadcasters, I don't know, attach and kind of build an audience. So we're going to be talking about that, and also some, mindset and a few things about life and liberty. And I know that there'll be nuggets of knowledge being dropped here today. So Josh, welcome to the party. Welcome. Thank you for being a pirate.
How are you doing? Man, thanks for having me on. Excited to be here.
It's funny because, I've been in the podcasting arena, and it's growing and it's expanding and everything else. And what you're doing with the Titan, I'll let you talk about that a little bit, but what you're doing is really useful because a lot of people want to start a podcast. They want to start something. They want to put it out there, and they just don't know how to grow it. It's like, Hey, I had a great show last night. My mom and my two sisters watched it, and it's like,
that's how it has to start.
And it always starts that way. And so I'm going to dive deep into this because I want to pull back the curtain and let people know that it's work. It does take some effort and time and energy, and there's ways that you can grow it. So talk a little bit about how you got here, why you're doing what you're doing, and what it is that really sparks the creativity in you.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I mean, I could go clear back to, when I was 8 years old and trying to sell my random crap on the side of the street, as a kid, I always believed in entrepreneurship, and I knew it was something that I wanted to do. And when I turned, I think 21, at that point, I'd had probably 5 companies already, mowing lawns or doing different little things. I say companies very lightly, right? Yeah. But I ended up starting a marketing agency, and we were doing Facebook ads for small businesses, which is kind of I don't even know how to say it. It's kind of a more popular type business. Yeah, it's one of the sexy businesses that a lot of people are starting right now because it's easy. But I quickly found that getting customers was really difficult, and keeping customers for a long time was really difficult because there were 2 things that happened. You either outperformed what they were expecting and they're like, great, we're done. Or you always underperformed what they were expecting and their expectations were too high. And so you were never really happy as the business owner because the relationship was weird. Yeah. And I woke up one morning realizing I'm struggling to do this. I don't really love to do this. And that same day I was having a lot of doubts, and that happens pretty frequently. The
imposter syndrome kicks in,
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not qualified to do this, or, it's like, it just doesn't fit my style, my life.
Yeah. And for me, what was really interesting is I felt like I was starting to gain the skill, but I still had that imposter syndrome because I'm like, I don't know if I could provide you a result. I mean, you're going to pay me and I'm going to do everything I possibly can to get you a result.
Right.
And what I realized, though, I sat down with a mentor of mine. I was really blessed to work with a guy, a multimillionaire guy, who he sat me down and he asked me, he's like, why are you doing what you're doing? He's like, you don't seem like you're happy and you're living to your fullest. And I was like, honestly, I mean, we were making the money, so that was good. I was making a good living, but I was trying to figure out, how to scale and how to grow and honestly to be happy. And we realized I loved the marketing. I loved my customers. I loved working with business owners, but I hated the relationship that we had, which was basically me coming to them on my knees begging for business.
Yeah.
And what we realized at that point is I said, okay, I need to make a major shift. And so I sold out most of my shares in the company. So I went down to, I'm only a 10% silent partner in that company now. And I basically just feed them business now. But I I decided to start the Lucky Titan podcast, which is honestly was one of my big passion points. I love podcasts. I love listening to radio shows, what have you. And when it all came down to it, I was like, okay, I'm just going to start interviewing entrepreneurs. I want to interview kind of like you're doing, interesting people, but I wanted to do it in the entrepreneurial niche. Uh-huh. And one of my favorite podcasts was Entrepreneurs on Fire. So I just kind of modeled what he did. And things started to blow up. It was really weird. I mean, I found exactly who I liked to serve. Uh-huh. And, we went pretty quick from zero. So I went from nothing basically to within 2 months, I had replaced my income in my previous company and surpassed it by 6 months, far surpassed it by 6 months. And I started to have this realization that I think I figured it out. I didn't start with a product. I said, okay, I'm going to find an audience.
Build an audience.
Yeah. And then I'm like, I'll give them what they want. And that's basically our journey. And that's how we've gotten to where we're at today and what we're doing now.
Well, it's interesting because a lot of people, especially people from I don't even know if it's my generation or it's this preconceived notion that broadcasting is still, the preeminent way to go. And it's also, there's some limitations to that, because if you're building an audience and you're building a community and they're fans and you got 1,000 fans, like, what is it? I forgot his name. He wrote the article on 1,000 raving fans.
There's like 10 of them.
Yeah. The whole point is that you can build a really solid base of individuals that you have in your community, and that feeds the funding of what you're doing and what you're passionate about. And it's really amazing to me that more traditional businesses haven't adopted the opportunity to do that. People will stand in line for a phone at Apple, and it's kind of the same thing. Same thing with Tesla. Their marketing dollars are pretty thin. However, they have thousands of fans, waiting for the car. And it's just, it's odd to me to watch that dynamic going, coming from advertising and billboards and broadcasting and radio. And it's a different model. So what was it that really was the fuel in the funnel that allowed you to grow like that? What do you feel like it was?
Yeah. Well, and that's actually what our business model is now, is I do teach people how to do it, because so I'm one of those people, I'm very against becoming an influencer, being an Instagram influencer. And I want to illustrate this with a story because it's really funny to see how this happens. So we had a guy.
I would rather be a encourager.
Right. Yep. Or a leader. I mean, I know that's not a sexy term, but a true leader. Right. Yeah. And so we had this guy, he reached out to us and he's like, Josh, I have this audience of 300,000 people who follow me across Facebook and Instagram, and I've never sold them anything. He's like, I'd really like to start monetizing it. I'm like, okay, well, let's try something. So we put up what would you call like an ad of some sort within his group. And what was really funny is he didn't get a single sale, not one, off of 300,000 people. And then I was looking at our audience. We had, I think at the time, 1,500 people. And I put the same offer up on mine because we were doing a joint venture on it. We made 400 sales off of our people. Okay. The quantity of sales was so much higher, even though we had way less people in our audience at the time, but it was because we had built an audience of, like you just posted there, right? The raving fans.
Yeah. Raving fans. Kevin Kelly. Thanks, Boris.
Yeah. And there's so many, I think that's clear back from like Dan Kennedy, who talked about that. I mean, some of the top marketers bring that up, and it's not a concept that we've made up by any means, but I believe in creating what we call like an army of fans. It's people that are going to rally to you and to what you're doing. And they're people who will continually pay you and support you no matter what their financial situation is, because they know you're going to take care of them. Right. And as brands in today's world, in some of these larger companies, the reason why people line up for Tesla cars is because they know no matter what car they get into, they're becoming part of a community. But whenever they buy one of Tesla's vehicles, they know that it's going to be the best product on the market, right?
Right.
Same thing with iPhone. And I think it's because they take care of their people so well. And, this is coming from somebody. So I've worked in multiple different industries. We've seen a lot of different, business models at this point, but they're not, the ones who are really winning and the ones who are creating true, community are the people who are really, truly providing a result for their people and helping them feel wanted by them. They're seen by the business instead of seen as a customer. That makes sense.
That's really good. I was actually mentioning you on an experiment we were doing with Gabriel and I. He's also a live streamer, and he also has a podcast on mental illness and stuff. So go check out Gabriel. But we were mentioning the Titan organization, and what specifically is it called?
It's called the Lucky Titan.
The Lucky Titan, yeah. And I couldn't recall, and I was drawing a blank at this point in time, so I'll just put it out there. It's like, and that's kind of what you're doing with the podcasters in your community. Is the Lucky Titan is really about helping the community understand what it takes to grow, and as I really enjoy and appreciate that. And so, is that a result of the journey that you've taken already, and kind of brought all of these ideas, these concepts together and put it into the Lucky Titan?
Yeah. And that's a really good question, because I don't really consider myself the guru. Like, I don't know everything. I'm still a young guy, right? I've been in business for, 7 years now, I think. But for most people, the thing that frustrates me the most is when I go and I opt into somebody's course or what have you, they pretend that they know they have the answer to everything, right? And I'm not that way. I'm the guy who's like, I'm going to point you at the best people. And really, when people come and follow us, I'm not always selling them things that are mine or giving them free things that are mine. I have a few specific things that I know work, and I know they work well. We teach joint venture partnerships. That's like my number one platform I stand on that I teach. Yeah. But if you want to know about how to make a successful funnel, I'm not the guy to go to, right? We have a successful funnel, but I couldn't duplicate it for you, right? So we go and we find somebody. So that's where the podcast comes into play, or we'll bring in like multimillionaires to come and talk about their successful funnels, and I try to find the most successful people. And then what we do is we actually model it first. So me and my company, we will take and we'll apply what they have, their software or what have you, to our business. And then once it's worked for us, we bring them in to talk about it. Because there's a lot of people out there just kind of shooting the breeze saying, oh, this is what works. And in my opinion, there's what works for one company. And then there's true principles that work for every company, or true strategies that work for every company. And I think too often those lines are kind of crossed.
Yeah, always. It seems like, especially in social media and marketing in the digital space, and the thing that I like or appreciate in the digital space is that data has a tendency to overwhelm your logic, because what you think may be working may not necessarily be working. It's like, this should work. Right. This should work. This should bring some people into the pipeline, and it doesn't always work that way. And the data can tell you whether or not you're moving in the right direction or not. So it's really fascinating. And I'm not an expert at anything. However, I have learned a few things along the journey, right? And a lot of what I love to do, at least, with the Pirate Syndicate, is I have built systems that allow things to come together in a way that I can document and delegate it. So, putting together a show and, having it up on a podcast and a post and a transcription and everything is really a powerful tool that a business owner can use to build his influence and his authority and visibility in the market, be seen, be heard, and be talked about. And that's kind of what you're talking about with your podcast was, once you had an opportunity to attract, then people were starting to show up in your world. So you didn't have to chase the business owners down. They kind of knew what you do, right?
Yeah.
So is that a principle that you use often now?
Yeah. Well, so, the method that I really like to teach people, it's just kind of So if you're brand new or you're trying to get your first 100 raving fans, don't try to create an audience. That's the number one problem that people run into. It's like, okay, I've got to create this audience. All you need to do is find groups of people who are already congregating together, who are your ideal customers, and get in front of them. So for example, if you're a podcaster, right? So let's say, my ideal customer right now is podcasters, right? So we're trying to get in front of a lot of podcasters. So what we'll do is we'll come on shows like yours. We know there's podcasters that listen to your podcast. We've gone in front of audiences. So like Anchor.fm is a podcast hosting platform. We're doing some joint ventures with them because I know if I can get in front of their audience, they're going to be, I can just have them, I'm kind of like borrowing their audience and bringing them over to mine, right? So the thing that we found is that as we put our, our information in front of them, we can pull over their audience into our audience, right? We kind of create our own audience at that point.
So you're using the NASCAR method. You're drafting.
Yep, 100%. And the thing that everybody thinks, oh, well, isn't that like stealing customers? Believe it or not, it actually enhances what they're doing because
you're showing value in their community as well.
100%. And as an audience owner, when somebody says to me, can I come and present in front of your audience? I'm like, oh yeah, let's do it, because they're providing so much more value to me. But
fantastic.
To that point as well, if you're trying to grow your audience, the number one thing to do is to have a platform to stand on. If you want to sit down with a multimillionaire or a billionaire, or maybe just an actor or somebody that you're like, I really want to sit down with this person, give them a platform to stand on. You know all about that.
Yeah. So Gabriel asks, who's your favorite guest, Josh?
Who's been my favorite guest on our show?
Yeah, on your show.
I got to be careful because a lot of them might listen to this. Because I genuinely, like, every guest we have on is amazing. But I think the one that was one of the funnest interviews that I've ever had was with Steve Sims.
Oh, Steve's awesome. I've had him on the show.
Yeah,
Steve's an
incredible guy.
In fact, I've been thinking about joining his community and getting a little more involved and engaged in that, just because I like hanging out with the guy. So
yeah, well, I'm going to one of his events. You should go there. I've heard there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when's the next one? I mean, he has
the one we're doing. It got postponed. So
yeah, I got postponed.
But they're incredible. So people the reason I liked talking with him in particular was because his, when you interview somebody, you've seen this, right? It's a lot about their story and things like this. And there's a lot of good meat, but he just brought, like you said, he's just got a fun personality. Yeah. But he also brings a totally different take on branding. The guy is a branding genius.
Yeah. Yeah. He's very unique. I enjoy hanging out with him. It's funny because, you talk about building an audience the first 1,000. Mm-hmm. I know Wendy's in the room. Hey, Wendy. Is there an interview you wish you could do a do-over? You got to be equally careful about that one too.
Yeah, I know.
It's like a lot of interviews sometimes fail because of one. I had one interview that the connection was just poor. I mean, it's just like, it was just a poor. In fact, we're going to be doing a do-over. Yeah, so.
Well, honestly, I know the exact one. And I think you would agree with me on this. So I had John Lee Dumas on the podcast.
Oh, yeah?
It's from Entrepreneurs on Fire. It was a good episode, but I was really unprepared for the episode, I won't lie. And John is a really important, he was a really important person for us. Like, I really genuinely love the guy. And he's, but when we had him on, I just felt like my questions weren't on point. I wasn't on top of my game that day. And you know how it is sometimes when you're, when you're interviewing people, sometimes you're just like, I'm drawing a blank. And I feel like I did that for the whole episode.
Like Kevin Kelly, normally Kevin Kelly comes off my tongue. It's like, okay, I got 10,000 things on my mind, and how, is there a frequency or an interval that you find is really, because John Lee Dumas is daily, that's what made him famous. That's what brought him to the top of the charts. And it's very systematic. I mean, he asks the same questions for every guest, and you kind of know what to expect and anticipate. Having him on the show and interviewing him is probably a different response. Pat Flynn is another one that I really enjoy and appreciate for his, and he drops so much value into the communities. And, there's so many amazing podcasters. And the reality is podcasting, coming from a radio background and actually running shows and being a host on radio programs, it's oftentimes that we have this idea of what it should be, and it's not always the way that it rolls out, and like you said, get in front of other people's audience and add value, just create some value, and it always seems to come to the top and provide, some results. So what are some other things, that we can actually think about as podcasters, broadcasters, as far as the industry goes? What do you see happening, and where do you see it going for yourself and for the Lucky Titans?
Yeah, well, so one of the things that, when it comes down to it, if you're trying to move into the future, like a lot of people are still running Facebook ads and doing things like that. Coming from an advertising background, I don't think any of those are really a waste of time, but I don't think they're the most potent way to actually grow an audience and to create fans. I believe in the joint venture partnership. It's a free way to advertise your business. And honestly, we've seen way better results doing that. And I want to explain what that is, because most people are like, okay, I don't really understand what a joint venture is. And a joint venture is just essentially partnering up with somebody else to provide value to both of your audiences. And that's how we work, is we try to not just do it one-to-one. We try to do them in a group setting. Yeah. We actually have a whole community of people who we put together into groups of 5 or 10 people to promote one another's content. But on top of that, we do giveaways together. We do summits together, that kind of stuff. Those are the sort of ways that we bring huge amounts of value into our audiences. And so let me explain it this way, because so for us, we have another company, it's a travel-based company out of Hawaii. And when we went to, so they hired me on, or partnered me in, right? They gave me part of the company to help them go digital, because they've been in the print space forever. They had about 50,000 followers across their social media platforms, and they were barely making any money off of their following. I got to be careful with that one too. But anyways, they weren't making a ton of money off of it. So they came to me and were like, hey, how do we grow our audience? So what we did is we created one joint venture. We got Volkswagen, who else? Trying to remember some of them. Some of these big travel influencers, and Swiss. They're the backpack company. So we got a couple of these really big companies and this is something, by the way, you can do if you don't have a name. But we went to all of them and said, hey, we're growing our email lists. Do you want to donate like a suitcase or maybe $200 or $300 to this vacation package? And we gave a sweepstakes away to all of our audiences. And then all of us emailed our lists. So between all of us, there was about 5 million people on the email lists. So we all emailed them, and anybody who opted in, we all got their email address, right? So on our end of things, it literally cost us $250. And I kid you not, we literally got 100,000 emails off of that. Huge growth for us, right? And all of those businesses got that same growth. And you can do that on a smaller scale. I mean, if you find 4 or 5 other influencers who want to pitch in $100 to some sort of giveaway, you get people to opt in. I mean, that's my favorite joint venture. Honestly, it's the quickest way to grow a list of people. Yeah. But we've seen huge value come from that. And the cool part about that, the reason it works so much better than, say, I just put $500 into a giveaway to my audience or to run Facebook ads to it, the way it works so much better is it doesn't cost us anything. But that is, those people who opt in for this are actually referral traffic, right? So they're they've already got a brand that they know, like, and trust, who's saying, hey, here's this really cool giveaway. So they automatically have that trust when they come and join you, where with a Facebook ad, it takes a long time. More
like a warm lead than a cold call, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And we run into that a lot when a lot of people ask us, well, isn't it faster to do Facebook ads? And I'm like, not really. I mean, you might initially get cash up front, but all of the people that you see who are winning online right now, they do have Facebook ads to support their joint venture models that they're using.
Well, and I think the one thing that's key to communicate here, though, is also the fact that, if you have 100,000 emails, you still have to provide value. You still have to nurture that list and grow that list. And there's going to be drop-offs. And there's going to be people that, undeliverables, and, people that are not necessarily going to. And it's just amazing what you can do when you add value. And help people along the way, whether they're joint partner or not. It's good practice in business. So
100%.
what are the plans and the strategies that you have going forward with the Lucky Titan? Is it continue the model and build a tight knit community around that? Because it sounds like that would be really a great opportunity for us to, I'm building out the Pirate Syndicate, and there'd probably be some conversations that we could have around that too.
Let's do it, man. We're forming joint ventures during a show. This is awesome.
Well, and I have other businesses that I help very similar to yours. They're growing and they're startups, and that's kind of what my other business is. I've been doing marketing for years, and so I have clients that are on retainer, and I do work for them, and whether it's ads or brochures or whatever it happens to be, and so helping them grow their audience is another piece of the puzzle that I can appreciate. And it's always nice to have people that you're connected with, like Steve Sims and Josh Tapp, and people in the industry that understand what it takes to move forward in the market. So,
and I do love that. I think networking is kind of an icky word. When you think of networking, you think of going to like a BNI event and somebody's throwing cards in your face. And what we found though is, we talk about providing value to people. I think you should provide value to your audience. But if you want to partner with people, don't come to them with value, because people can see through it. Like if you're like, oh yeah, here's like, not that it doesn't work, right? Like you can still give that value, right? But what I've found is the easiest way to get somebody to work with you is to come to them with a unique collaborative opportunity. So if you come to somebody and say, hey, here's this done for you thing. So for example, right, you do a great job with this with your show. So like, hey, I'd love to have you on my show. I don't know if you do any like affiliate splits or what have you, but you basically just say, okay, come on my show. You can promote your thing. And then you give them the templates. You send them, hey, make this post beforehand, make this post afterwards. And for me as the guest, it's a no-brainer, because I'm like, my team literally just did everything that you asked us to do. And it took them like 2 minutes. Yeah. But it's because you put the time in beforehand to make it easy for me. And for me, it's like, wow, that's amazing, because I'm willing to post your content or do whatever you want me to do. I don't want to have to think. And so when you come to me with that unique collaborative opportunity, I'm like, boom, I'll split sales with you all day, man.
Yeah. Well, and especially when it's something that adds value to your community as well, because you don't have to do any of the heavy lifting.
Right.
And it's amazing. So Josh has, or Gabriel has a good question for Josh, and it's, what do you feel about text messaging groups like Gary Vaynerchuk and David Messler use to send out content?
Yeah. So I love text messaging groups. That is what I would call a level 2 strategy. People think that email is like, people are constantly email's dead or this, that, or the other, but email has actually made a comeback. And it's the one thing throughout history that continues to be the place that you,
it's still constant.
Yeah. And the reason why is because everything anybody does is tied to that email. And so having their email doesn't just give you the ability to email them. It gives you the ability to retarget them with ads, to find them on all these different platforms, throw ads in front of them or what have you. But the cool thing about text messaging, the reason why that still works well, is because people don't really get texted as often anymore. People get polos, they get Snapchats, I don't even know. I'm not even that hip, right? I don't even know how. TikTok. But I'm still a LinkedIn guy. I'm like an old fashioned guy with that.
Yeah. But is that where your primary audience hangs out?
So we have our own proprietary community called the Tribe of Titans. So that's where that's where I usually
remember.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Russ knows. That's where I typically hang out. And then LinkedIn is kind of my typical mainstream place that I hang out, just because there's very little competition on there and we grew an audience there organically. But I do think though, so just to answer his question, I think if you want to get into text messaging space, don't enter until you have a good strategy to build your email list, because what text will do is they will enhance your follow-up process with people. And to be completely honest, I think it's very invasive to people who you haven't built a really good rapport with.
Yeah, you have to have, I think you have to have an audience, and that's just another tool in the toolbox is how I see it, to continue the high touch and, the frequency of communication and adding value, sharing that value. So Kathy Spooner, I want to give a shout out to Kathy Spooner. Great info. Love the idea of partnering to enhance other mutual benefit. As a business owner entering the digital space, it can be overwhelming to start because of the noise and it's just that does not have validity. That's a great point, Kathy. And I really want people to understand that it's, there are people like Josh out there. I've helped a lot of different people along their journey and given, them assistance. Josh is the same way. There's people out there that are willing and able to help. And it's like Josh's entire philosophy: go out there and collaborate with some people that have more information about a discipline or a skill set that you don't have, that you can help out with and offer value to. And it's an exchange. It's a true exchange. And I think that's when the networking no longer is icky.
Yeah. That's where it becomes fun.
Yeah.
And I also want to give her a couple of resources if she's okay with that. I hope she is.
Yeah.
So this is coming. So I spent over $40,000 in my first year on courses, coaching, consulting, going to events, everything. And I found the number one way to really learn in a potent manner is to get a coach. And I know people hate hearing that because it's like, oh, that's expensive. But even if you get a coach that charges you $1,000 a month, it will be the best money you ever spent. But let's just say you are unable to afford a coach. The next best place, I mean, I'm going to promote our own stuff, right? Like obviously, we're a good place because I'm not here to give you a bunch of tactics. We're here to give you the exact strategy that works to get started. But on top of that, the two resources that I found for entering the digital space, if you're brand new to the digital space, ClickFunnels is a software company, but they have this thing they just launched. It's called FunnelFlix.
Russell Brunson.
Yeah.
He's in Boise.
Yeah, he's in Boise. Yeah, not too far from me.
I know, right down the street.
Kind of ish. It's like 4 hours, but still. But they have this thing called FunnelFlix, which is this this marketing education platform. We've actually hung the code up on all of our other marketing stuff and gone straight to theirs and to Ryan Dice's Digital Marketer.
Ryan Dice is a pretty sharp guy.
Yeah,
he's pretty sharp.
And I mean, there's tons of, so the hard part in today's world is it's pretty easy to be sold on $1,000 course on how to do XYZ. Typically what those are doing is they're teaching you one piece of the puzzle, right? They're worth it. I've never bought a course and said that was a total waste of time.
Because I've always learned something from every course.
Right. And
however, like you said, though, it typically teaches you one piece of a large stack of items that you need to know to bring it all together.
Well, and so I'll just give you my dad, he's been starting a YouTube channel and everything. I got him kind of to go into the digital. He's retired.
That's cool.
He loves fixing cars. And so he started, you can go check him out. It's Crazy Dad's Garage. I'll just throw it out there.
The eternal marketer.
Yeah, exactly. So his YouTube channel, I was just like, he just works on cars all day. He builds hot rods and things like that. And I was like, well, just start a YouTube channel, just video everything you're doing. So we got him a camera. He usually just uses his phone, but we got him a camera and he just records what he does. But what we found with a lot of people, like when they're coming into it, he was running into the same problem. He'd buy these courses, they teach him one thing, and he's like, they get you 90% of the way there, and then they don't give you that last 10%. Yeah. And I realized something that, for myself, having been in the marketing space for so long, I realized, well, that's actually not true. The problem is what happens is, so they're teaching you Facebook ads and they're like, okay, so here's this, they teach you the entire way to run a Facebook ad, but then they don't teach you copyright. And they're like, oh yeah. And then you just throw in this really good copy and you're like, okay, but I suck at writing.
My ads are not working.
Right. Yeah.
I don't have any copy.
Yeah, exactly. And so and honestly, that's one of the first skills you should learn, by the way. Copywriting is a great skill. But that's the reason I so the ClickFunnels is a great place. And then Ryan Dice's Digital Marketer, because they have it all. And so you can go through and you can learn, because I want to say it's easy to enter the digital space, but there are a lot of moving pieces.
Yeah, there are a lot of moving pieces.
Like there's low barriers to entry, which makes it appealing, but you need to be willing to invest in the education side of it, because I mean, you've got to start somewhere, but you've got to have the full puzzle, to see the full picture. Yeah. And the first place I recommend for people to start is to build a platform. So start a podcast, a YouTube channel, a Facebook group, whatever you want to start, wherever you're comfortable. So that's either video, audio, or written word, right?
I always say words, images, audio, or video.
There you go. Yep.
You are the media.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. Well, and so you want to create some sort of thing like that. And if you're not confident being the person who's like the dancing monkey in front, like Russ and I, be the interviewer.
Yeah.
And being an interviewer is so easy because you bring on cool people and you just sit back and let them talk. I've even seen people where they don't even interview them. They do a quick intro. They're like, hey, this is Russ. He's from the PirateBroadcast, and listen to him. Right. And then they just let him speak for 20 minutes. Right.
Yeah. And it's a presentation.
Right. And it's a presentation. And what's cool is you'll organically grow your audience that way. But so the first thing to do is you build a platform. And then the next thing I would do is focus on building an audience. Don't even build a product yet. I mean, people get so gung-ho on, I have this thing I want to give to the world, and everybody starts with a product.
I got to build a course.
Right. But the number one mistake in entrepreneurship is like, okay, I want to sell this soap. I know the soap is so important. And so they go out and they spend all this money and time to build soap. And then they're like, okay, who wants my soap? And they go around waving it across the internet, and they'll make maybe 10, 20 sales, right? But what you should be doing is go and find a group of people who don't shower and say, hey, what type of soap would make you want to shower, right? And then you build the soap that they want. They want one that smells like bacon. You give them soap that smells like bacon, even if you don't think that that's going to sell.
You may not have the best answer,
right?
So the other thing that I want to make sure that back to Kathy's point, and before we wrap up, I want to make sure that we, another great tool that individuals can use that is very low entry, is find a group of like-minded individuals that somebody may be a little further ahead than you, and somebody may, need some help. But start a mastermind, get together and structure it in a way that is productive and easy to access and available to everyone, and just start brainstorming. Because like when you're building things in your own mind, it becomes a vacuum and you can't see around the corner. So if you can have other people point that out for you, it's much easier to see what you might be doing that can be improved.
Yeah. Well, and you hit a great, you could open a huge can of worms with this. I'm a huge mastermind fan. But when we made that transition in our business, that was the first product we sold was a mastermind. Yeah. But what's really funny is I'm like, okay, I want to get around the right people. So I asked my mentor, he's a multimillionaire. I'm like, can I use your name? Will you be a part of this mastermind? Obviously, I'm not going to charge him because he's my mentor at that point. Yeah. But can I use your name? And so I went around to a bunch of people that I knew I couldn't reach without knowing his name, right? And to people who knew him and who were also millionaires. And we created a mastermind of 10 of us. They were all millionaires. I was not. But I got to be around them and I made money off of it. And that is a great place to start. So kudos for bringing that up.
Yeah. So Josh, I really appreciate the fact that you're here, and I want to have continued conversations around this subject because I think it's an important one to share, because there's a lot of frustrated people out there that are working on, the next course. And like you said, they get 90% of the way and they don't know where to go or why it doesn't work. It's like, so I think it's an important conversation to have. And the Pirate Broadcast was built on the idea that interesting people doing interesting things. And it's really about giving back to the community and helping and assisting, individuals that are just working to improve their life. And right now we have so many people out there that are open to opportunities. And we're just, I think, on the tip of the iceberg to see this expansion in the digital arena and how we can produce real business on the digital space. And I think it's really important for people like yourself and others around us to produce content that helps people along their journey. So thanks for being here, man.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Thanks for having me on. It was fun.
Yeah. Well, so as always, I know we got to wrap up and we're way over time apparently. So I'm having a great conversation with you. And as you know, kindness is cool. Smiles are free. And you enjoy the day. Thanks, Josh.
Thank you.
Soon. Bye. Thank you for joining the Pirate Broadcast. If you found this content valuable, please like, comment, and share it across your social media channels. I would love the opportunity to help others grow in their business. The Pirate Syndicate is a platform where you show up, we produce the show. It's that easy. If you want to be seen, be heard, and be talked about, join the Pirate Syndicate today.